Ever had one of those talks with like an older relative about their
Oh,
driving?
yeah.
Where maybe you've noticed
Yeah.
some close calls or they just don't seem quite as sharp behind the wheel?
Right.
It's a tough situation, right?
Yeah.
Well, today we are diving into this
Okay.
heated Ask Reddit discussion about whether there should be mandatory driving tests for seniors.
It's a fascinating topic
Yeah.
because it brings up all these questions about, you know, safety,
Right.
personal freedom, and how we care for our aging population.
For sure, for sure.
It's
Exactly.
yeah, it's a really
We've got some real life stories here. We've got passionate arguments on both sides,
Mhm.
and even some insider info from an optometrist about
That's
those DMV vision tests.
interesting.
So, whether you're a concerned family member or just curious about this whole issue,
Yeah.
buckle up. This is going to be a thought provoking ride.
What's really interesting is that this isn't just some theoretical debate.
Yeah.
This discussion starts with a user, Sartek Rock,
Oh,
who shares a personal story about his 69-year-old mother,
okay.
who had to retake her driving test in Canada after a stroke.
Oh, wow.
So,
And this is where it gets really interesting.
yeah.
She had some vision loss after the stroke.
Yeah.
So Sartek Rock and his father were worried.
Right.
They went to the DMV expecting her to fail,
Okay.
but she passed with flying colors.
Wow.
This really highlights how even with the tests we have,
Yeah.
seniors with declining abilities can slip through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
potentially endangering themselves and others.
It's a perfect example of how this issue often falls on families to navigate,
Oh, for sure.
which can be incredibly stressful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Sartek Rock, this was just the beginning.
Oh, no.
Within a week, she got into an accident T-boning another driver.
Oh, gosh.
And for anyone who doesn't know, that's when a car hits another car directly on the side,
Right.
forming a T-shape.
Got it.
Thankfully, no one was hurt,
Yeah.
but it was a major red flag.
It's almost like watching a slow-motion train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
And they have
Yeah.
some with the, you can just feel the family's anxiety growing with each incident.
Right, and then about a month later, she panicked on a busy road, ended up on the median,
Oh, wow.
and completely ripped off her car's exhaust system.
Oh, my gosh.
I was reading this thread with my heart in my throat,
Yeah.
just thinking this is a recipe for disaster.
It's clear that Sartek Rock was living with this knot of worry,
Right.
especially after his father passed away
Mm-hmm.
and he became his mother's primary caregiver.
Right.
Yeah.
And sadly, the worst case scenario almost happened.
Oh, no.
Sartek Rock got a frantic call from his mother, rushed to find her car up on a curb surrounded by ambulances.
Oh, my goodness.
She almost hit a father and son crossing the street.
Goodness.
Pure luck that no one was seriously injured.
This story really sets the stage for the rest of the discussion
Mm-hmm.
because so many of the comments that follow
Right.
echo Sartek Rock's concerns.
Yeah.
A lot of people are advocating for more frequent or specialized testing for older drivers,
Okay.
especially after like a major medical event, like a stroke.
Exactly. Several people bring up the idea of decals
Oh, interesting.
for new and elderly drivers,
Okay.
similar to what they have in Japan.
I see.
The idea being it would make others more aware and
Mhm.
cautious around them.
Right.
Some even suggest incorporating more challenging real-world simulations into the tests
Oh, that's interesting.
instead of just basic maneuvers.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
It raises the question of how we can make driving tests
right.
more accurately reflect the complexities of real-world driving,
Right.
especially as people age.
Some commenters even argue that retesting shouldn't just be age-based,
Okay.
but rather triggered by specific events like accidents or medical diagnoses that could affect driving ability.
That's a thought-provoking approach.
Yeah.
It moves away from just using age as a marker
Mm-hmm.
and focuses on identifying potential risks more objectively.
Right. And then there's the whole issue of how some seniors are passing the current tests at all.
Yeah.
One commenter mentioned a 90-year-old man with cataracts and dementia
Oh, wow.
who still managed to pass his DMV vision test.
That's concerning.
Makes you wonder how effective these tests really are.
Well, this is where the insight from an optometrist who commented on the thread is really valuable.
Oh, wow.
They point out that DMV vision tests can be surprisingly lax.
Really?
They've actually seen patients fail the test in their office only to be passed by DMV staff later.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
They even shared a funny anecdote about a 17-year-old who, as a joke, pointed out the flaws in the depth perception test and was still passed.
And still passed.
If a teenager can figure out how to game the system,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder how reliable these tests are, especially for people with genuine vision impairments.
It definitely raises concerns about the consistency and standards of DMV testing across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And it begs the question, are we adequately screening drivers for potential risks,
Right.
regardless of their age?
If people who clearly shouldn't be driving are slipping through the cracks,
Yeah.
it puts everyone on the road at risk.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about vision tests, is it?
No.
What about cognitive decline, slower reflexes, or medication side effects?
Yeah.
These things can all impact driving ability,
Absolutely.
especially as we age.
And that brings us to the other side of the debate,
Okay.
the concerns about mandatory testing
Right.
and the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Some Redditors worry about ageism
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's fair to single out seniors when dangerous drivers exist in every age group.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
We've looked at a lot of anecdotes about elderly drivers,
Right.
but obviously irresponsible driving isn't limited to any age
No,
group.
sure.
And there's also the concern about taking away a senior's independence.
Mm-hmm.
For many, driving is their lifeline to the outside world, and taking that away can have a huge impact on their quality of life.
It's a really tough balance to strike.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we want to protect people's freedom and autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
but on the other hand, we have a responsibility to ensure public safety on the roads.
One commenter brought up a heartbreaking example.
Okay.
They have an 89-year-old great-grandmother who they love dearly,
Mm-hmm.
but admit she's become a public menace behind the wheel.
Oh, gosh.
She's been in 4 accidents in the past year alone,
Oh, my goodness.
but no one in the family wants to be the one to take away her freedom.
It's a difficult situation.
Right.
And it highlights the emotional complexities
Oh.
involved in these conversations.
For sure.
It's not just about safety.
Right.
It's about family dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
personal values, and potentially even legal issues.
And some commenters make a good point.
Yeah.
Simply taking away licenses isn't enough.
Right.
We need to consider alternatives like better public transportation for seniors,
Mhm.
ride-sharing programs designed for them, or even volunteer driver networks.
Those are all great ideas.
Otherwise, we're just isolating them further.
Exactly. We need a multifaceted approach
Mm-hmm.
that considers not just the safety aspects,
Right.
but also the social and emotional well-being of seniors.
Yeah. It's not about punishing them. It's about finding solutions
Right.
that allow them to live fulfilling lives while also ensuring everyone's safety on the road.
Absolutely.
So we've seen both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Arguments for and against mandatory testing, the concerns about ageism and preserving seniors' independence.
Right.
But let's get back to those personal stories from Reddit.
Okay.
Some of the most powerful comments come from people sharing terrifying close calls they've had with elderly drivers,
Yeah.
or the anxieties they face dealing with aging parents who refuse to give up the keys.
These anecdotes really bring home the point that this isn't just a theoretical debate.
Right.
It's a real issue with very real consequences.
Okay, get this. One commenter talked about their grandpa,
Okay.
who at 88 decided to turn in his license. He said he didn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail.
Wow.
If he caused an accident, talk about a wake-up call.
That's quite a statement.
Yeah.
It really highlights the weight of responsibility that comes with driving, regardless of age.
Another commenter described a woman in their retirement community
Okay.
who stopped taking her anti-seizure medication
Oh, no.
and continued to drive.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the risk she was taking, not only to herself, but to everyone else on the road?
It's a chilling thought,
Yeah.
and it emphasizes the importance of responsible medical care and open communication
Mm-hmm.
between doctors, patients, and families
Right.
when it comes to driving safety.
Another story involved an elderly man
Okay.
who kept having mini strokes while driving,
Oh, gosh.
but refused to give up his license. His family was terrified.
Yeah.
And then there was the story of a 90-year-old woman
Oh, wow.
who accidentally killed a 70-year-old pedestrian in a parking lot.
Oh, my goodness.
These aren't just statistics.
Right.
Their real lives tragically impacted by this issue.
It's a sobering reminder of the potential consequences
Mm-hmm.
when driving abilities are compromised.
Right.
And it reinforces the need for a compassionate but proactive approach to addressing this challenge.
Yeah.
It's not about taking away people's rights.
Right.
It's about finding ways to keep everyone safe.
It's clear that families often bear the brunt of this burden.
Yeah.
There's the constant fear for their loved one's safety,
Mm.
but also the responsibility of having to police their driving,
Right.
which can be incredibly stressful and lead to conflict.
Mm. Absolutely. One commenter shared how they had to disable their mother's car
Wow.
to prevent her from driving.
Wow.
Another talked about the heartbreak of seeing their once vibrant and independent grandmother
Mhm.
become increasingly confused and lost behind the wheel.
It's gotta be tough.
These situations are incredibly difficult for everyone involved.
So we've heard about the arguments for and against mandatory testing,
Yeah.
the anxieties faced by families, and the need for better alternatives for seniors who can no longer drive.
Yeah.
But what about solutions beyond testing? What did the Redditor suggest?
One idea that came up repeatedly
Yeah.
was the need for better public transportation options for seniors.
Okay.
If we had accessible, affordable, and convenient transportation systems
Mm-hmm.
that catered specifically to the needs of older adults,
Yeah.
it would significantly reduce their reliance on driving.
That makes sense if you don't have a reliable way to get around. It's
Yeah.
hard to give up your car,
Right.
even if you know you shouldn't be driving.
Exactly. And it's not just about getting from point A to point B.
Right.
It's about maintaining social connections,
Yeah.
accessing healthcare, and participating in activities
Mm.
that contribute to overall well-being.
Another interesting suggestion was driver refresher courses.
Okay.
Not just for seniors, but for everyone.
I like that idea.
You know, just a periodic brush up on the rules of the road,
Right.
new safety technologies, and best practices for safe driving.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Driving skills can get rusty over time,
right.
regardless of age.
For sure.
And a refresher course could be tailored to address age-specific challenges,
Right.
like vision changes or slower reaction times.
And, of course, we can't forget about the potential role of self-driving cars in the future.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I know it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie,
Right.
but technology is advancing rapidly.
It is.
It's not inconceivable that autonomous vehicles could eventually provide a safe and independent mode of transportation
Yeah,
for seniors who are no longer able to drive themselves.
it's certainly an exciting possibility and one that could revolutionize transportation for everyone.
For sure.
Imagine a world where human error is removed from the equation,
Right.
reducing accidents
Uh,
and improving overall road safety.
of course, there are still many ethical and logistical hurdles to overcome.
Right.
It's definitely something to think about. This whole deep dive into the Ask Reddit thread has been incredibly eye-opening.
I agree. We've explored a lot.
Yeah.
The emotional stories of families grappling with this issue,
Mm-hmm.
the ethical dilemmas,
Yeah.
and potential solutions ranging from mandatory testing to better transportation alternatives,
Right.
and the promise of self-driving cars.
What really struck me was the diversity of perspectives.
Yeah.
In the Reddit discussion, it shows that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to
Absolutely.
this complex issue.
And it highlights the importance of having these conversations,
Right.
even if they're difficult.
Yeah.
We need to listen to each other,
Mm,
understand the different viewpoints,
right.
and work together to find solutions that address the needs of all involved.
We'll continue this discussion in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay, it's good.
where we'll explore even more compelling stories and perspectives from the Reddit thread.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of elderly drivers and mandatory testing. We're picking up where we left off, exploring the perspective and personal stories shared on this fascinating Ask Reddit thread.
You know, as we delve deeper into this discussion, it becomes clear that it's about so much more than just passing a test. It's about navigating a complex web of emotions, responsibilities, and societal expectations.
Absolutely. And the Reddit thread really brings those complexities to life. In the last part, we heard about Sartek Rock's experience with his mother and how her declining driving abilities put a huge strain on their family. Unfortunately, his story isn't unique. Many commenters shared similar experiences, expressing fear, frustration, and a sense of helplessness.
One commenter mentioned feeling like they were constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to bring up their concerns about their father's driving for fear of upsetting him or causing conflict.
That feeling of being caught between a rock and a hard place resonated with a lot of people on the thread. They love and respect their aging parents, but they're also terrified of the potential consequences if they continue to drive.
It's a heart-wrenching dilemma, and it often leaves families feeling isolated and unsure of where to turn for help.
One commenter shared a particularly poignant story about their grandmother. She was a fiercely independent woman who had always loved driving. But as her eyesight and reflexes declined, she started having more and more close calls.
I imagine that must have been incredibly difficult for both the grandmother and her family.
It was. The commenter described how their grandmother's once confident demeanor behind the wheel gradually shifted to anxiety and uncertainty. She would get lost on familiar routes, misjudge distances, and react slowly to unexpected situations.
Those cognitive and physical changes can be subtle at first, but they can have a significant impact on driving ability.
The breaking point came when the grandmother accidentally rear-ended another car at a stoplight. Thankfully, no one was injured, but it was a wake-up call for the entire family.
It's often these types of incidents that force families to confront the issue head on.
In this case, the commenter's family decided to have an open and honest conversation with their grandmother about her driving. They expressed their concerns and explained that they were worried for her safety and the safety of others.
Those conversations can be incredibly challenging,
Mhm.
especially if the senior is resistant to giving up their driving privileges.
It wasn't easy, but the commenter said their grandmother eventually came to understand their concerns. She agreed to start limiting her driving to daytime hours and familiar routes, and she even enrolled in a driver refresher course.
That's a great example of how open communication and a willingness to compromise can lead to positive outcomes.
It's not always that smooth sailing, though. Some commenters shared stories about family members who were completely in denial about their declining driving abilities. They would blame other drivers for their mistakes, refuse to acknowledge any problems, and become angry or defensive when anyone tried to bring up the topic.
Denial can be a powerful coping mechanism,
Uh-huh.
especially when it comes to something as emotionally charged as driving.
Absolutely. And it can make it incredibly difficult for families to intervene effectively. Some commenters described having to resort to desperate measures, like hiding car keys, disabling vehicles, or even reporting their loved ones to the DMV.
Those situations are incredibly fraught with emotion and can strain family relationships. It's important to remember that driving is often deeply intertwined with a sense of identity, independence, and freedom, especially for seniors who may already be experiencing other losses associated with aging.
That's such a crucial point. It's not just about taking away a set of keys, it's about acknowledging the emotional impact of that loss.
Exactly. And it highlights the need for more supportive resources and services for seniors who can no longer drive.
Many commenters expressed frustration with the lack of viable transportation alternatives in their communities. They talked about inadequate public transportation systems, long wait times for paratransit services, and the high cost of taxis or ride-sharing services.
It's a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. We need to invest in creating transportation options that are accessible, affordable, and convenient for seniors so they can remain connected to their communities and maintain their quality of life even if they can no longer drive themselves.
Some commenters also suggested that we need to reframe our cultural attitudes towards aging and driving. We tend to view driving as a right rather than a privilege, and we often equate it with independence and competence.
That's an interesting perspective. Perhaps we need to shift our focus from taking away driving privileges to supporting transitions to alternative modes of transportation.
That's a great way to put it. It's about creating a culture where seniors feel supported and empowered to make safe and informed decisions about their driving
Yeah.
without feeling stigmatized or marginalized.
We need to recognize that driving is a complex activity that requires a high level of cognitive and physical functioning, and that those abilities can decline with age. We also need to be more proactive in addressing those changes through regular medical checkups, driver refresher courses, and open communication between doctors, patients, and families.
Absolutely. Instead of waiting for a crisis to occur, we need to create a system that encourages early intervention and supports seniors in maintaining their mobility and independence in safe and sustainable ways.
It's about recognizing that everyone ages differently and that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to this issue. What's important is to have open and honest conversations, respect individual choices, and provide the necessary resources and support to ensure the safety and well-being of both seniors and the community at large.
Well said. Now let's shift gears a bit and explore some of the potential solutions that Redditors proposed beyond mandatory testing. Remember, the goal isn't just to restrict driving, it's to find ways to keep seniors mobile and engaged in their communities. What do people suggest?
One idea that gained a lot of traction was the concept of graduated licensing for seniors. It's similar to the system we have for teenage drivers, where they start with restricted licenses and gradually gain more privileges as they demonstrate their skills and responsibility.
That's an interesting analogy. So how would that work for seniors?
Well, it could involve things like limiting driving to daytime hours or familiar routes, requiring more frequent vision or cognitive assessments, or mandating the use of certain safety features like backup cameras or lane departure warnings.
So it's about tailoring the driving privileges to the individual's abilities and needs. rather than imposing a blanket restriction based solely on age.
Exactly. It's a more nuanced approach that acknowledges the diversity of experiences and capabilities among older adults.
Another idea that came up was the development of more senior-friendly transportation options. Several commenters pointed out that many public transportation systems aren't designed with the needs of older adults in mind.
You're absolutely right. Buses and trains often have high steps, crowded aisles,
Hmm.
and infrequent stops, which can be challenging for seniors with mobility limitations.
Some people suggested creating dedicated senior shuttle services that would provide door-to-door transportation for essential errands like grocery shopping, doctor appointments, and social outings.
That's a fantastic idea. It would not only enhance seniors' mobility, but also foster a sense of community and reduce social isolation.
Another commenter proposed a volunteer driver program, where community members would volunteer their time to provide rides for seniors who can no longer drive themselves.
That's a wonderful example of community-based solutions. It would create opportunities for intergenerational connections and build a sense of shared responsibility for supporting older adults.
And of course, we can't forget about the potential of technology to revolutionize transportation for seniors.
Absolutely. Ride-sharing services are already becoming increasingly popular, and there are even companies developing apps specifically designed for senior transportation. These apps can connect seniors with vetted drivers, offer door-to-door service, and provide real-time tracking for peace of mind.
It's amazing how technology can bridge gaps and create new possibilities for people of all ages.
And it's not just about getting from point A to point B. Some commenters even suggested using virtual reality technology to create immersive driving simulations that could help seniors assess their skills and identify areas where they might need improvement.
That's fascinating. It's like a video game for safe driving.
Exactly. It could be a fun and engaging way for seniors to stay sharp and maintain their driving skills.
It sounds like there are a lot of creative and innovative solutions out there. It's just a matter of implementing them and making them accessible to seniors in all communities.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's not just about coming up with ideas. It's about translating those ideas into tangible actions that make a real difference in the lives of seniors.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored the emotional challenges faced by families, the importance of creating a supportive and understanding culture around aging and driving, and the potential for innovative solutions to enhance seniors' mobility and independence.
And we've seen that this issue is far more complex than it might appear on the surface. It requires thoughtful consideration, open dialogue,
Hmm.
and a commitment to finding solutions that prioritize both safety and well-being.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll wrap up our exploration of the Ask Reddit thread and reflect on some of the key takeaways from this thought-provoking discussion. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts kind of unpacking this whole complex issue of elderly drivers and mandatory testing, all inspired by this really engaging Ask Reddit thread.
Mhm.
We've heard personal stories, strong opinions on both sides, and even some expert insights.
It's been fascinating to see how this seemingly simple question,
Right.
should there be mandatory driving tests for seniors,
Yeah.
opens up this Pandora's box
Yeah.
of ethical dilemmas, social challenges, and deeply personal experiences.
Totally. And as we wrap up our exploration of this thread,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how many common threads there are despite the diversity of opinions.
Hmm.
One thing that kept popping up was this tension between individual freedom and public safety.
Absolutely. On the one hand,
Right.
we want to respect seniors' autonomy
Yeah.
and their right to make choices about their own lives,
Mhm.
including whether or not they continue to drive.
Right.
But on the other hand, we have this responsibility to
Uh,
protect everyone on the road,
Yeah.
including vulnerable pedestrians and cyclists.
It's like that classic ethical dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to balance individual rights with the greater good of society.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer,
Right.
no magic formula that will
Mm.
satisfy everyone.
For sure.
What makes this even more challenging is that driving is so deeply intertwined
Yeah.
with our sense of identity,
Hmm.
especially in car-centric cultures like the US and Canada.
That's a great point. It's not just about getting from point A to point B.
Right.
For many people, especially seniors who might be experiencing other losses associated with aging,
Yeah.
driving represents independence, freedom, and
Yeah.
the ability to connect with the world.
Exactly. So taking away someone's driving privileges
Right.
isn't just a logistical inconvenience.
Hmm.
It can be a profound emotional blow.
Right.
It's essential to approach this issue with sensitivity and empathy,
Yeah.
recognizing that it's not just about enforcing rules,
hmm
it's about respecting people's dignity and supporting them through a potentially difficult transition.
I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this whole discussion, the
Mm.
need for more empathy and understanding, both for seniors who might be struggling with their driving abilities
Mm.
and for their families,
Mm.
who are often caught in the middle trying to balance love and concern
Mhm.
with the need to keep everyone safe.
I couldn't agree more. And this thread really highlighted the emotional toll this issue takes on families.
It did, for sure.
We heard stories of adult children agonizing over how to broach the subject with their parents,
Right.
of siblings disagreeing on the best course of action,
Mm.
and of the guilt and resentment that can build up when these conversations go badly.
It's heartbreaking, really, and it speaks to the need for more open and honest communication within families,
Absolutely.
as well as more support from healthcare professionals and community resources.
I agree.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
one thing that really impressed me about this Reddit thread was the creativity
Yeah.
and thoughtfulness of the proposed solutions.
Mm.
It wasn't just a bunch of people complaining about bad drivers.
Right.
There was a genuine desire to find ways to make our roads safer. Yeah.
While also supporting seniors' mobility and well-being.
I completely agree. We saw a wide range of ideas, from
Unbelievable.
practical suggestions like improving public transportation
Mhm.
and offering driver refresher courses,
Right.
to more innovative concepts like graduated licensing systems and virtual reality driving simulations.
Yeah, and what I found particularly encouraging
Yeah,
was the emphasis on finding solutions that go beyond simply restricting driving.
absolutely.
People were talking about creating more age-friendly communities,
Mhm.
fostering intergenerational connections, and leveraging technology
Yeah.
to enhance seniors' transportation options.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset from a focus on limitations to a focus on possibilities.
Right.
How can we create a world where seniors can remain active, engaged, and connected to their communities,
Yeah.
even if they can no longer drive themselves?
Right.
That's the real challenge, and I think this Reddit thread gave us a glimpse of some really promising solutions. So to wrap things up, I think this deep dive has taught us that the issue of elderly drivers and mandatory testing
Yeah.
is far more nuanced and multifaceted than it might seem at first glance.
It is.
It's not just about passing a test.
Right.
It's about navigating complex ethical dilemmas, supporting seniors through a potentially difficult transition,
Yeah.
and finding creative solutions that prioritize both safety and well-being.
And it's a reminder that these aren't just abstract debates.
Right,
They're real-life challenges that impact individuals, families, and communities.
for sure.
By having open and honest conversations, listening to diverse perspectives, and working together, I believe we can find solutions that benefit everyone.
Well said, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it sparked some thought-provoking conversations and perhaps even inspired you to explore some of the ideas and resources we've discussed. Remember, driving safely isn't just about following the rules.
Okay.
It's about being mindful, responsible, and considerate of everyone on the road.
Well said. And remember,
Yeah,
the conversation doesn't end here.
that's right.
If you've had personal experiences or insights you'd like to share,
Yeah.
we encourage you to reach out. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and continue this important dialogue.